September 10th, 2001. While the world slept, a handful of people made a bet. Not just any bet, a bet that the next day 2 airlines would crash, thousands would die, and they'd make millions. But that's just the beginning, because 9/11 didn't just change history. It created a trillion-dollar industry, rewrote the rules of war, and left behind a money trail that still hasn't been followed to the end. This is the story they don't want you to know. Let's start with a question. What if you could profit from a disaster? A put option is basically a bet that a stock will fall. You pay a fee up front. If the stock tanks, you cash in. If not, you lose your fee. Just think of it as this way. It's like buying fire insurance on your neighbor's house and collecting when it finally burns down. So now check this out. In the days before 9/11, someone bought a number of put options against United Airlines and American Airlines, the 2 airliners used in the attacks. The normal volume on these 2 stocks are about 200 put options a day. But between September 6th and the 10th in 2001, 2,500 put options, over 12 times the normal. Morgan Stanley, the biggest tenant in the World Trade Center, saw a 27x spike. Traders on the Chicago Board Options Exchange were stunned. One even said, "I've never seen anything like it." Even CNBC and Bloomberg ran segments questioning the timing. But this isn't the only time markets had been manipulated before crisis. Think Enron, the 2008 crash, even COVID-19, the market swings. But the scale here, next level. Well, the SEC noticed. They launched the largest investigation in Wall Street history, analyzing 9.5 million trades. Their conclusion? No evidence of insider trading. But here's what they didn't tell you. 95% of the United Airlines puts were traced to one trader, and they were never interviewed. $2.5 million in profits found in a Swiss account, that case dropped. A 2010 University of Zurich study called these trades statistically impossible without insider knowledge. Yet, to this day, nobody's been charged. And here's the kicker, similar suspicious trading happened before the 2008 crash, Brexit, even COVID. Every time, the official story is nothing to see here. Maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe it's a pattern. And before we continue, if you're still with me, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, helps us expose more stories like this, because what comes next is even darker. But let's zoom out a little bit, because on September 10th, 2001, the day before the attacks, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld stood at a Pentagon press conference and dropped a bombshell. He said, according to some estimates, we can now track $2.3 trillion in transactions. That's not pocket change. That's over 7 times the Pentagon's annual budget at that time. But here's the nuance. Rumsfeld wasn't saying the money was missing in the sense it was stolen. The Pentagon's accounting was so outdated, so tangled, that they literally couldn't follow the money trail for trillions of dollars in transactions. This wasn't a new problem. The Pentagon has been reporting massive unsupported adjustments for decades. 1.7 trillion in 1998, 2.3 trillion in 1999, 1.1 trillion in 2000, so on. By some estimates, at least $21 trillion in Pentagon transactions between 1998 and 2015 couldn't be traced or explained. Congress ordered audits, whistleblowers said the books were cooked, but the day after Rumsfeld's announcements, the world's attention shifted. The Pentagon was hit, the story of the missing trillions vanished from the headlines overnight. And here's a detail that rarely gets mentioned. One Army office in the Pentagon lost 34 of its 65 employees in the attack. Most of them accountants, bookkeepers, and budget analysts. They were working on tracking military spending when Flight 77 struck. While the Pentagon's books were a mess, one thing was clear: war meant money. Lockheed Martin's stock surged 900% since 9/11. Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Boeing all saw similar spikes. Since 2001, defense contractors have taken in $7.35 trillion. The Pentagon spent $14 trillion, with half going to private companies. You're probably wondering how. Well, it's lobbying. Since 2001, defense contractors have spent $2.5 billion on lobbying. That's over 700 lobbyists, more than one for every member of Congress. And then there's the contractor boom. At the height of the Iraq War, there are more private contractors than U.S. troops on the ground. Blackwater billed the government $1,500 a day per guard. Halliburton landed $39.5 billion in no-bid contracts. But with big money comes big waste. $15 billion in unused Afghan military gear. $800 million for ghost soldiers. $2 billion in cash literally lost in Iraq. Let's shift gears. Meet Larry Silverstein. 6 weeks before the attack, Silverstein signed a 99-year lease with the Twin Towers. His insurance policy, a $3.5 billion terrorism clause. After 9/11, Silverstein argued that 2 planes, 2 attacks equals double the payout. After a 6-week legal battle, he walked away with $4.55 billion, the largest property insurance payout ever. He used $10 million a month of that insurance money just to keep the lease active. And when it came time to rebuild, the Freedom Tower cost $3.9 billion, funded by $8 billion in Liberty Bonds taxpayer money. Silverstein's net worth, over $1 billion. Critics called it a legal loophole. Supporters said just smart business. Meanwhile, first responders were fighting over healthcare funding. As of 2023, over 2,500 responders have died from 9/11 related illness. Many of them are still fighting for compensation. But there's another building that rarely gets talked about, World Trade Center Building 7. WTC-7 was a 47-story office tower, not hit by any plane, yet it collapsed at 5:20 p.m. on 9/11. And you're probably asking, why does this matter for a story? Because Building 7 was a financial nerve center. Its tenants included Solomon Smith Barney, which is a major investment bank, ITT Hartford Insurance Group, American Express Bank International, Standard Chartered Bank, the SEC, the IRS, the United States Secret Service, the Department of Defense, and the CIA shared the 25th floor. The collapse destroyed thousands of SEC case files, some involving Wall Street's biggest fraud investigations. The official explanation? Uncontrolled fires, structural damage, and a cascade of failures. But for skeptics, the financial angle is hard to ignore. A building full of financial records, government secrets, and evidence gone in a single afternoon. Alright, let's talk about Dick Cheney. As Secretary of Defense, Cheney privatized military logistics. Then he became Halliburton's CEO, then vice president. After 9/11, Halliburton's stocks soared. They opened a Dubai office to avoid US taxes. They even overcharged for fuel. $2.65 a gallon is what they charged, and they paid $1.18. Not only that, they scored close to $40 million in no-bid contracts. It wasn't just Halliburton. Billions flowed offshore with almost zero oversight. The privatization of war exploded after 9/11. As mentioned earlier, Blackwater billed $1,500 a day per guard. They were involved in scandals, lawsuits, even war crimes. By 2007, there were 180,000 contractors in Iraq, more than US troops. Contractors handle everything: food, security, intelligence. And the profits, often funneled offshore. KBR and others sent millions to Dubai-based firms. So let's talk more about the money. $2 billion in cash literally vanished in Iraq. Pentagon cannot access for 61% of the funds. Whistleblowers who tried to expose fraud, many lost their jobs, or worse. But here's the thing, the 9/11 playbook never really left. COVID, and Moderna CEO becomes a billionaire. Ukraine, Lockheed stock jumps 12% in a week. Climate disaster, new Brazilian contracts for old defense firms. The pattern is all the same: crisis, fear, legislation, contracts, profits, repeat. So what's happening now? Well, it's the same recipe, same contractor, same lobbyists, same profits, just new headlines. For every dollar that was made, there was also the human cost. There were 7,000 US soldiers killed. Civilian deaths, 380,000. The taxpayers, $14 trillion was spent, enough to buy every American a Tesla. And as mentioned earlier, 2,500 responders dead from 9/11 related illness. The truth is, this system wasn't an accident. It was built for crisis profiteering. Dozens of Pentagon officials joined contractors after 9/11. The US spends more on defense than the next 10 countries combined. So who got rich from 9/11? Not just a few names, it's a whole system. A system that rewards disaster, profits from pain, and never lets a good crisis go to waste. The next time you hear about a new war, a new emergency, or a new unprecedented event, ask yourself, who's betting big? Who's cashing in? And who's left picking up the pieces?